tweet here from Fabian Ardaya, who covers the Dodgers for The Athletic. Kike Hernandez in agreement to go back to the Dodgers, and I believe it was Kike himself who broke the news. So Kike Hernandez going back to the Dodgers. He's one of the great postseason players of his generation.
Of all time. They start stacking the numbers.
And it just makes sense that he would stay and return to go to Los Angeles. My question is, Harold, how are they going to keep... They feel like they have 50 guys on their 40-man roster. I mean, this is a guy that obviously plays multiple positions, but it is going to be interesting to see how their roster lays out.
Yeah, well, the biggest number is the pitchers. So somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get traded. They're still set up for moves if they want to do.
Because you have Chris Taylor, that's he's very, positional flexibility.
You have
Edman. You have Max Muncy, who can play multiple positions.
But it's really running it back.
Yeah.
It's the same players, right? I mean, it really is. There's no.
Hyun Kim comes over from Korea.
Hyun Kim is the guy that's going to be an interesting change. But they still. I mean, Muncy right now is going to play third, and we'll see what happens there. Michael Conforto fills a hole in the outfield. He takes basically Jason Hayward's spot. You know, if you go back to last year and you compare it where it's at, Teoscar was there. Conforto is Jason Hayward.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have Edman, who they do now, and that was Kim. And Kike wasn't there in the beginning of the year. They made the trade to get him. So there's some new additions, but they're better.
Oh, absolutely.
They're deep. They're depth. I think we all learned one thing through COVID, and I think it was because of the protocols and this guy's sick, so he's gone for 10 days. That you win with a full complement of your organization. It is not just your 25-man or 26-man now roster. It's the whole organization. Not even the 40-man roster guarantees you're going to get through it.
I wonder, and I think
kind of what I see with the Dodgers.
And I think this is something we'll have to monitor as the spring goes on. Are they going to trade one of their existing pieces just because there's no room? Maybe a Pajes or an Outman or someone like that. I'm just throwing a couple of names out there.
Now you're set up. If you want to go get, let's say, Nolan Arenado, and you say we need a true third baseman.
Yeah.
You're set up to go make that move. I mean, they traded Gavin Lux, and we're not even talking about it.
No.
That's the depth that they have.
Yeah, it's a remarkable organization, top to bottom, as you said, and it is a well-oiled machine. Now, Kike Hernandez, after winning the World Series, he told me, he said, we had a great run. We beat 2 New York teams, and we beat the best team in baseball. He was referring to the San Diego Padres, and the Padres were active over the past couple of days. They signed veteran free agent Jason Hayward, reportedly to a deal. Then they signed Connor Joe, who is a San Diego kid. The former Pirate also offers some positional flexibility. They signed him to a 1-year deal. And then Sheets and Giggles. Gavin Sheets, in agreement with the Padres on a minor league contract, big corner infielder with some big pop. He goes to the Padres on a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. What do you make of those moves and really the Padres offseason?
Well, one, industry-wide, we're going to see a lot of minor league contracts with a major league invite. That's where you're at right now with the free agents. Gavin Sheets, huge upside. I want to see what happens. Will he get the at-bats? But they'll give him a good look. I love Connor Joe.
Me too.
I spent Roberto Clemente Day in Pittsburgh with him. Great community-minded guy, but I think he's a player that is really starting to figure it out. And I think as a player, you get to certain points where you go, this is my swing. Okay, I'm starting to understand it. Oh, they're trying to do this. I think he's really got huge upside. And what happens a lot of times is, will they play?
Yeah.
Jason Hayward, he's at the end. You know, and he's going to be a guy that understands his role.
Against right-handers.
He understands his role. He's not trying to be Jay Hay.
Yes, we are spring daydreaming as we welcome you to a brand new hour of Hot Stove. Harold Reynolds, Robert Flores. Lauren Shahadi, and we say good morning to Keith Costas. Keith, you've been going alphabetically. Today, you've got the Padres and the Giants. Why don't you start
good
in San
morning,
Diego?
guys. Welcome back to the creepiest animation at the network, Roflo. It's good to have you back on the desk. And
Well, people like it because they see feet, so it's all, it's all good.
Don't know where to go with that, but thank you for the segue. We'll start with the Padres going out west. And you go back to the second half of last year, guys, and we know the NL West was crowded, but the Padres right at the top of the list, along with the Dodgers and the D-backs in terms of the best overall record in the majors. Just 50-49 before the break, and you see a 111-win pace after the break. Now, one of the big parts of that turnaround, guys, was the top of their rotation. We know that there's been trade rumors all offseason with both of these guys. Seems like they're both headed back, but you see the performance in the first half solid, but the second half really went towards the top of the league with sub-3 ERAs from both Dylan Cease and Michael King. That's among 63 pitchers with at least 20 total starts in the National League last year. Now, you look at the outfield, guys, one of the best groups in the league last year, and the emergence of Jackson Merrill, obviously, a big part of that. You look at the highest WARs in the first season ever in the Padres' history. Some pretty impressive company there with the Hall of Famer and Roberto Alomar and Ozzie Smith, and obviously one of the biggest stars in the game in Fernando Tatis Jr. And speaking of Tatis, guys, you think about the way he finished on a flurry last year in the postseason. How about 11 for 26? That's a 4.23 average. 7 of the 11 hits for extra bases, including 4 home runs, which you see right here. Obviously, he missed a big chunk of the second half last year, got shut down with that bone bruise in his stress reaction, in his right thigh bone. Missed about 50 games, 60 games. But you go back to the start of June, he was really starting to heat up before he got shut down, extend that out through the end of the postseason. Only Aaron Judge had a higher slugging percentage from that point in the season on. Like I said, missed a big chunk of that time, but still good signs from Tatis coming back off of that injury, picking up where he left off in June. Now, we talked about it in the A block, guys. 3 signings over the weekend since we were last on the air as they try to address the hole in left field following Jurickson Profar's debut. Sheets and Connor Joe, like you mentioned earlier, Roflo, can play first base as well. But it looks like for now, this is the trio that's going to try to make up for the loss of Profar in left field. Like I said, though, guys, a lot of losses here for the Padres this offseason. You take a look at the subtractions. Really sort of weighs more on this side than the addition side. So finished strong last year, like we said, with the best record in the majors in the second half of the season. Crowded division. How do we see the Friars going into 25?
Well,
they're not close to being the team they were the last 3 years.
those subtractions are significant, and one that probably doesn't get talked about, Kyle Higashioka.
Yeah.
I thought he found the power stroke. Last year, he got consistent opportunities behind the plate and getting consistent ABs. So I just hope that the Padres can keep the momentum going. I hope that they can find a way to hang with the Dodgers a little bit, to push them. But that's a tough division, and it's a tall order.
I think we'll see Cease and King traded in the spring. I just think they're on a different teardown. And sad to see because they were really right there knocking on the door with the Dodgers. They had that amazing run. You think about the Bryce Harper home run. They were that close to going to a World Series. To see where they're headed now, it's disheartening.
Yeah, it's a great park. I love the energy at those home games in Petco. It comes through the TV when you're watching. So I always root for the Padres because I think it's a great atmosphere and a great ballpark.
Well, to your point, H, that whole rotation, all 5 guys were acquired via trade. So obviously head on a swivel with A.J. Preller out there. Any of them could be out the door. We know how they've operated over the years.
They got to replenish the minor league system, right? So they'll take those 2 guys. Think about the trades they made in the last couple of years and all the minor leaguers that have gone out the door. All we got to do is look at the Nationals, and those are the Padres players. But they're going to replenish it, I think, with those guys, and they'll continue to keep this thing going, but they're going to be rebuilding this year, I think.
Yep. All right, guys, staying in the division and heading to Northern California with the Giants, and we'll start here with Matt Chapman. You look back on last year and how things turned around for him. Through July 23rd, 13 homers. After July 23rd, in about half as many games, hit more than half of his home runs on the season, the 6th highest slugging percentage in the National League from that point on. What does it end up with? Well, a 6-year, $151 million extension in September. You remember all the drama when he originally went to the Giants and the long-term deal he didn't end up getting. Makes good with a strong finish last year. Now, one guy that we didn't get to see for a full season last year, how about Jung Ho Lee? Those are his numbers on the left. What he averaged is
the son and the grandson of the wind.
Yeah, I know you love the nickname, Harold. Those are his numbers from the KBO, and what he did in the short sample last year. He had shoulder surgery that ended his season on May 12th. Projected, if you trust those numbers that have come out recently with Pacoda and Steamer and all the different projection systems, as one of their better players this season. A full season of health will obviously go a long way for the Giants. Now, we know they acquired Willie Adames to play shortstop. That means Tyler Fitzgerald moves to the other side of second base. Going to play second this year as opposed to short, as he did last year. And I think this probably flew under the radar for most fans. Really one of the most productive rookies in the league last year. Really solid down the stretch. Only Jackson Merrill had a higher average among rookies. Only Colton Cowser had a higher home run rate. Now, if you're looking for one guy that we might see, probably a long shot, at least early in the season, but Bryce Eldridge just turned 20 in October. This guy's 6'7", 233 pounds, playing first base, and one of the better power hitters in the minor leagues. You see 23 home runs in 116 games last year across 4 levels. That was the most among all teenagers in the minors. Made it to AAA by the end of the year. Could we see him in the second half? Possibly. They're obviously going to be patient with him, but a pretty intriguing prospect on the farm. To me, guys, if this team's going to do anything, it comes down to health in the rotation. It's an accomplished group, but they've had injury issues. Logan Webb has been one of the most durable pitchers in the majors, led the NL in innings in each of the last 2 seasons, actually led the majors back in 2023. But after that, some serious question marks. Robbie Ray just 7 starts last year, coming off a Tommy John surgery. We know Justin Verlander at an elder age, just 17 starts last year and struggled, but they think there's still something left in the tank. Obviously, an accomplished resume for Verlander. Kyle Harrison put together a decent season last year, but the former #1 left-handed pitching prospect in the game looks to take a step forward. And Jordan Hicks had a pretty good showing for his first year as a full-time starter, but ended up moving to the bullpen in the second half after running out of gas. They're going to try him again in the rotation and see if he can make it through a whole season. But guys, you look at the big picture with this franchise. We know they had the record-setting year back in 2021. But 7 of the last 8 years, they've failed to put together a winning record. You take 2021 out, a .468 winning percentage over that period of time. That's 20th in the major leagues after that extended stretch of success that we saw under Bruce Bochy in the early part of the 2010s. So, crowded division like we mentioned with the Padres, guys. How do we see the Giants?
Well, I think Robbie Ray is a very important part of what's going to happen with that rotation, maybe ultimately the Giants season. He has the ability, we've seen it, to pitch at a very, very high level. And like Keith said, Logan Webb at the top, one of the most durable ones. So I'm looking to see what Robbie Ray can deliver in 2025.
Yeah, I love Eldridge, where he's headed. Harrison's upside as well. Fitzgerald, giving everybody fits. Yeah. You know, so, and then you look at, what they're trying to do the rest of the way. Huge upside. I still think they've got a long way to climb. And the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks do not make it easy to get there. Yeah.
Well, to your point, H, you look at these odds, just to put a bow on it, in the National League West, you'd have to bet $10,000 on the Dodgers to make the postseason if you want 100 back. So you see the highlighted teams here. This is going to be a crowded field. The Giants obviously have an uphill climb here, as do the Padres to a certain extent.
No, it's going to be very difficult. But Buster Posey, I think he brings an element to that front office that maybe has been missing a little bit, and I know that they're very excited in Northern California for the Giants in 2025. All right, as you mentioned, the San Francisco Giants and everyone else in that division has to deal with.
So earlier in the show, Joel Sherman gave us his biggest question marks heading into spring. The Dodgers get their own separate list, just because. You know why. Joel Sherman, good Monday morning again to you. At the top of it is the plan for Shohei Ohtani. Perfect world. What does this year look like for Shohei, Joel?
Yeah, they get their own list because they'll never say it out loud, but they think they've already clinched the NL West. So they're thinking October and February and March and April. So the question is, how do you get Shohei Ohtani through October to be part of that rotation? And so I think there's a little track record here. He made 23 starts for the Angels in 2021 coming off of Tommy John surgery. So say you limit that to 20, thinking he's going to get other starts. That probably puts you mid-May, maybe the 1st of June as that. So I don't think you'll see him starting games in spring training. The other thing is this guy is a real habitual guy. So I think once he starts, he doesn't want to do a start and stop. And so therefore, I think, and then the question becomes, how do you rehab a guy who's in your starting lineup every day? It isn't like you could send him out on assignment. I expect to see a lot of Rancho Cucamonga Quakes coming up to the Dodger Stadium. There'll be a bunch of simulated games, and they'll try to get him ready. Let's not forget that at the end of last season, the Dodgers were weighing whether to make him available as even a relief pitcher in the postseason. He was throwing 93 with a split. So they feel he's a healthy pitcher going into now, but they are slow playing this so that he's an October starting pitcher.
Come up and face Shohei. Have fun. While you're here, all the arms allow him, as you said, Joel, to kind of ease into it. Who's playing shortstop? I saw, and Robert and Harold reported, Kike Hernandez back with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Who's at short this year?
Well, Mookie Betts played 61 games there last year, kind of almost out of emergency. If you remember, Gavin Lux had some throwing issues in spring training, and Betts said, I'll do it. He wasn't real pleased with how he did it. And anybody who knows Betts, he's kind of fanatical about doing things well. I've heard he's really going at this. High schools in Los Angeles, then down to their facility in Arizona, working with Chris Woodward. Harold would probably speak to this better. The key thing being, you know, an outfielder usually throws from one angle. He's been working on all the different throwing angles. And I heard he still has a little chip on his shoulder that as the young player soon drafted by the Red Sox, he was quickly moved off a shortstop. And all these years later would like to prove that he's a high-level shortstop.
The great ones are different, right? Mookie is amazing. You've talked with Dave Roberts extensively, and he always says his versatility allows him so much freedom. Mookie Betts, Roki. It's so interesting with Roki Sasaki because so often we hear about talent, right? And this guy's talent's off the charts. But before they do anything, how do we know it's going to translate? When you watch him, you just know with this guy, Joel?
Well, a year ago, he was being compared at the same age to Paul Skeens, and we saw what Paul Skeens did last season. So do you get something similar? The question is how to break him in. And again, I can't stress this enough with everything with the Dodgers. They are thinking about Sasaki starting games in October. How will they get there? Six-man rotation is going to be part of this. You know, they're ultimately going to have three Japanese pitchers, Sasaki, Yamamoto, and Otani, guys who are used to pitching once a week in Japan. Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin didn't even pitch last year. By the way, you know what's happening tomorrow? Dustin May is throwing a bullpen tomorrow. Tony Gonsolin on Wednesday. They're both expected to be full-go starters going into this. 134 innings for Tyler Glasnow last year, which was a career high, but then he got hurt and so didn't pitch in the postseason. And so the only kind of fully guy who they believe can go soup to nuts is Blake Snell, but he got his big money, so it's a little easier to tell him he's in a six-man rotation. Then you see these other names like Bobby Miller, Landon Knox, Justin Wroblewski. At some point, Emmett Sheehan is going to come back from Tommy John. So I doubt anyone in this rotation will throw 150 innings, including Sasaki. They are, again, it's a soft entry, thinking big picture in October.
Where's Kershaw? I don't see it. I keep thinking, is that the finishing touch for the Dodgers?
But they need more starting pitching. Yes, at some point, Lauren, he's going to sign. Today is an important day for the Dodgers. Them and the Cubs get to do this a little earlier than everybody else because they're going to play games in Tokyo to open the season in mid-March. Players could be put on the 60-day injured list starting today for the Dodgers. And if you'll notice, Enrique Hernandez announced himself that he had re-signed. It had been also slow played so that they could put guys on the 60-day IL, which allows 40-man roster spots to open up. So they have a bunch of pitchers like Emmett Sheehan, who has to go on it, River Ryan, etc., who have to go on the 60-day IL. So Hernandez signed, and I think at some point soon Kershaw will. But Kershaw had both, I think it was a foot and knee surgery in the offseason because he wants to try. He had these surgeries because he wants to try. So he is a June or July issue, but at some point soon he'll probably sign a contract and begin rehabbing officially with the team and see if he can make it back to be part of that rotation in some way.
What about at the helm, top step, Dave Roberts? I remember, Joel, right after the Dodgers won the World Series, I was talking to Freddie Freeman, and he said, I hope, that guy right there, I hope Dave Roberts gets his flowers because the way he managed the bullpen, and Freddie Freeman was so emotional talking about his skipper. What is his long-term future there?
You know what's interesting overall, Lauren, is the two World Series managers, Dave Roberts and Aaron Boone, both enter spring training as lame ducks. This is the last year of their contracts. And I think both teams are going to try to do something about that. I believe the Dodgers and Roberts began to engage more seriously last week. But, Roberts is looking at someone like Greg Counsell, who got the record contract, 5 years at $40 million. And I just want to name some things that Dave Roberts has done. 9 years, 9 playoffs, 8 division titles. The year he didn't win a division title, his team won 106 games, 4 pennants, 2 championships, the 3 highest win totals in franchise history, the best winning percentage by a major league manager with 1,000 games. He probably is looking at Greg Counsell and saying, Greg Counsell hasn't gotten a team to the World Series. He's getting this. I think the Dodgers look at Roberts as part of the machine, but I think it's dangerous to think anyone could just manage what is now the new evil empire. The Dodgers are going to have a lot of pressure on them. There's been talk about them winning 120 games. It's championship or bust. The one thing is Dave Roberts could land the planes, and there would be some real mystery if the next person can. And so I wonder, for a team that's going to have between salary, payroll, and luxury tax will spend over $500 million this year, should there really be a thumb down on the manager for the difference between $1 million or $2 to get him where he needs to go, and he could land the planes? It will be an issue heading towards the season if this gets done.
When you manage baseball, personality, staff, it's a big-time job. Joel Sherman, how many wins do the Dodgers have this year? 105?
I think it's harder. Yeah, I think it's harder to get to that 116, 117. But I mean, the 105 feels like a breeze for them, considering the talent level. Considering they signed someone like Kike Hernandez, and it feels like an extra guy, and he's a really good baseball player.
Especially in October.
He got glasses just before the All-Star game last year, and in the second half had almost an 800 OPS. And I wonder if he's going to be much better doing it.
Joel Sherman.
I gotta go, Lauren. I got to get on a plane. I'm going to spring training today.
Oh, go. I told you off.
Get out of here, Joel.
No big deal. You're making me smarter.
Hey, Joel, real quick, there's a good chance your flight's going to be delayed, so you're good.
Yes.
You're probably
clear, Joel?
I'm going to get a knapsack and walk to Florida.
There we go. Thank you, Joel. Safe travels. We'll see you in Florida and Arizona or wherever your destination takes you. He had something interesting that I know you were wondering about.
Well, 2 things stood out to me. One, Dave Roberts. He went from the guy that was, Dave Roberts is going to get let go, to he's a huge part of this whole thing. I mean, in the center. The one thing that Dave has done, if you spend time around him, is knowing all the players. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to put that out there. It's another thing to be able to punch somebody's buttons, have conversations, guys come in his office. He's a big part of this whole thing. Yeah. And being able, and the Dodgers are a huge marketing machine. Dave Roberts understands the marketing of this machine as well. Now, the other thing that caught my mind when Joel was talking was Shohei Ohtani. It's not going to be as easy as they think, getting him games to pitch in the minor leagues. We're talking about the MVP of the National League.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers aren't just going to say,
gonna work?
You're not going to hit, Shohei. You got to go to Lake Elsinore and pitch. Now, unless I'm wrong with the rules, I didn't know you could be on a minor league roster and a big league roster at the same time. So can he go down and pitch one day and then come back and be active the next?
That's a good question.
I guess they can figure all that out, but that's what you're going to see happen. So it's not as easy as if he was in spring training and he can throw one day and will hit the next and all that.
Well, it probably helps that they have 37 starting pitchers.
Yeah,
so
they got pitching.
They got a little wiggle room. So as Joel said, hey, they're thinking about October right now.
Yeah.
So.
ドジャースの2024年シーズンはまさに夢のようなオールスターチームが誕生した瞬間からファンの期待を一身に背負い圧倒的なパフォーマンスで駆け抜けてきました。大谷翔平、ムーキー、ベッツ、フレディ、フリーマン、これほどのスター選手が一堂に会し、チームとして戦う姿は、まさに野球ファンにとっての最高のエンターテイメントでした。シーズンを通して、ドジャースはまさに、勝つべくして勝つ、チームでした。オフェンスでは大谷翔平が豪快なホームランを放ち、ベッツが驚異的な守備とバットコントロールを披露し、フリーマンが頼れるバッティングでチームを支える。そして、ピッチング陣には新たに加わった強力な先発投手たちが圧巻の投球を見せ、ブルペンも安定感抜群。まさに、どこから見ても隙のない、超完成型のドジャース。そして何よりも印象的だったのは、 選手たちが見せる団結力と情熱です。ただのスーパースターの寄せ集めではなく、お互いを信じ合い、支え合い、チームとして戦い抜く姿が本当に素晴らしかった。毎試合、ベンチでは笑顔があふれ、ビッグプレーのたびに選手たちが肩を組み、大歓声を上げる。その光景こそが、ドジャースが最強のチームである理由ではないでしょうか。特に NL 西地区優勝を決めた試合のあの瞬間、9回裏、最後のアウトを取った瞬間、選手もファンも一体となって歓喜の渦に包まれました。スタジアムの青い海が大きく波打ち、選手たちは抱き合い、涙を流しながら勝利の喜びを分かち合いました。まるで映画のワンシーンのような最高の瞬間でしたね。しかし、これはまだ終わりではありません。ここからはワールドシリーズ制覇というさらなる夢に向かって突き進むのみ、ドジャースがどんなドラマを見せてくれるのか、これからも目が離せません。皆さんも、この歴史的シーズンの証人となりませんか。これからもドジャースの戦いを一緒に応援していきましょう。動画を楽しんでいただけたら、ぜひ、いいね、と、チャンネル登録、をお願いします。コメントで皆さんの熱い応援メッセージもお待ちしています。さあ、次の試合もドジャースと共に、